Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's amazing webinar with the name and the topic of startup investment and ecosystem building, the role of women in the future of investing. In order to help you understand better about the topic, as well as the panelists, the two amazing panelists that we're going to have in a few minutes, please join me in watching the following video clips.
Đầu tư vào công nghệ là một cái ngành đầu tư rất là đặc biệt. Bên cạnh những cái tưởng thưởng về mặt tài chính thì chúng ta mở ra những cái cánh cửa cho thế hệ trí thức Việt Nam có thể tiếp cận công nghệ và đào tạo các bạn để ngày mai này các bạn có thể đưa ra những cái phát minh mới cũng như những cái công nghệ mới cho đất nước.
Desperately need more amazing women starting businesses, rising up the ranks in businesses. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get more investment dollars flowing into women-led companies.
And why do we women need to start investing right now?
We'd like to once again say hello and send special thanks to the amazing panelist who is going to join us and discuss about the topic of today's webinar, which is the role of women in the future of investing. First of all, please join me in welcoming Ms. Christy Chang Lê. She is the CFO and President of Vietnam Operations for Arriva. Ms. Christy is also the co-founder of Alabaster, a group that invests in founders building companies with radical solutions that will have a positive and planet-level impact. Hello, Ms. Christy, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here. Hello, everybody.
And from the other side of the Pacific Ocean, it is a great pleasure to welcome you, Randy Zuckerberg. She is the CEO of Zuckerberg Media. Currently, Randy is an investor and advisor for Republic.co, one of the largest equity crowdfunding platforms in the US. So hello and welcome to Vietnam virtually, Randy.
Thank you. I wish that I was with everyone in person. Vietnam has been on the top of my list of countries to visit, but I'm so grateful that technology allows us to be together. It's still yesterday evening in California, so I'm coming to you from the past.
That is amazing, and we were so thrilled to know that you have some time for this webinar that we have in Vietnam to encourage people, especially women, when it comes to investing. And right now, without further ado, shall we start with the very first questions concerning this topic? Okay, so first of all, we'd like to ask these questions. We raised these questions to Randy. You were a Harvard graduate and you had a pretty fancy job with Ogilvy at New York City. And then you came along and worked for your brother in Silicon Valley. And all of a sudden he became a billionaire and you became Mark's sister. Do you think it's fair for like a person like you, very successful and have your own career and also graduated from amazing university, to be referred to someone else's sister? Is it fair?
You know, first of all, I'm glad that you mentioned that I'm a Harvard graduate because my brother famously did not graduate from Harvard. So that's pretty much the one thing that I have going for me in life to brag about. But you know, it's very funny that the journey that we've been on, because I didn't actually set out to work in Silicon Valley or in technology, but when I was working at an ad agency after school, I got staffed on a brand new team called digital marketing. And no one was really doing digital marketing at that time. In fact, I didn't even want to be doing digital marketing. I didn't know what it was. But over the next 2 years, almost every company in the world started needing it. And I started getting all of these phone calls from my brother saying, hey, I'm starting this thing. I really need someone who knows something about digital marketing. Can you help me? So I said, I'll go out for 3 days to help you. And I fell in love with the idea and Silicon Valley, and I ended up staying for 10 years. A weekend trip became a decade. But you raise an interesting question, because I think, if I was going to list off my resume to someone, I'm very proud of the things that I've accomplished. But I think for women, it's a constant battle. We're always, our achievements are always being viewed at under the lens of a man that we're related to. Maybe you're working at your father's business, or with a spouse, or in my case, a brother. And I think that's definitely something that a lot of women face as an uphill battle in business, is to be seen for your own achievements, not just in light of a man who's next to you.
Yeah, so talking about what you have achieved, for example, you founded and you have been running Zuckerberg Media, and also you are an author as well. You wrote and you published a book, Dot Complicated, right? And there is some kind of like cartoon films or something related to this book. And you also, if I'm not remember wrong, in 2014 or something like that, you also participated in producing like a musical or something in Broadway, which has always been your dream, right? So I don't think that women like you, or women anywhere, or any woman would need to be referred at someone else, like especially a male roles, sister, wife, or something like that, right?
It's interesting, because I think when I was younger, it used to bother me a lot. Now that I'm, a little bit older, I have 3 children of my own, I have my own career. Honestly, I mostly feel so proud. I feel so proud of what my brother has built, and that, how he has connected all of us around the world. It's truly incredible to have someone within your own family who's doing that. I recently was in a commercial for the company SodaStream. They make sparkling water. And in the commercial, I joke about being Mark Zuckerberg's sister. It was on TV. And I'm walking by in front of the camera talking about, I'm an author, I'm a radio host. And someone goes, hey, aren't you? And then I just crush the glass that I'm holding and kind of keep going. And but I think, that for me, my own experiences as a business leader while still working with a sibling of mine really instilled in me a passion to fight to give opportunity for other women. And even girls. It starts so young that we have to think about empowering girls. So you mentioned my cartoon Dot. I'm very, very passionate about getting more girls into STEM education and technology. So I made a cartoon called Dot about this tech-savvy girl, and it turned into a TV show all over the world. So for me, everything I do today is either dedicated towards getting more girls into technology, or helping female entrepreneurs through investment and mentorship and advice, because I don't want any women in the future to only be judged by the men in their lives.
Right. So the same story kind of happened to Christy as well, because not just one, she graduated from 2 amazing and leading universities in the world, which is Oxford and MIT. And then she had a glorious career at McKinsey. But then she left and worked for her husband and became all of a sudden Sonny's wife. So share with us a little bit. Do you think like you were missed out, Christy?
I love to be called Sunny's wife. I'll take what I can get. Why not? Just like Randy, starting up, I was pretty annoyed. But after a short period of time, I realized that it didn't matter, because for some people, they may choose to believe what they want to believe anyways, no matter how hard we try. And in the tech world, very quickly, I was carried away by the dream to get the company to the finishing line. And it doesn't matter who's the CEO, who's the president, whoever. We just love to be part of a winning team. As long as the company make amazing products as long as the company makes huge impacts to the world. And being part of the team like that is so satisfying. It is so wonderful that nothing matters more.
Christy,
Right.
everyone knows that behind every great company and male entrepreneur is an awesome woman like you.
Thank you.
Like both of you, I have to say.
It cannot be more true. If you look at a number of companies in the world, if you just define leaders as those who hold the roles, it may be biased. But if you look at the executive team behind it, women are quite representative. And these rare women actually make huge impacts in those companies.
Yeah, and I still remember the very famous quote from former President Obama. He said that I am Michelle's husband, right? So it's time for former President of the United States to be referred as Michelle's wife, Michelle's husband. So, okay, so let's move further a little bit to the investing journeys of yours, right? So both of you, great education, a great career. Now you have everything that you have, beautiful families, happy family, and happy private life. I think that more money than you actually need, right? Then why did both of you decide to jump into the investing world? And why is it important that you do that? Okay, maybe starting with Christy.
Okay. Investing. It is a very different world. It's not about running my own show, but it's about watching other amazing people running their shows. And it is a privilege to know those entrepreneurs, those amazing people in action. And sometimes we got the chance to support them and to be the part of the team sometimes. And I find that experience very satisfying, very rewarding, and it grows me as a person. Not only in the technical expertise that I try to improve day by day, but it's also about the outlook about lives and how these amazing women and amazing entrepreneurs handle their lives, juggle with so many balls up in the air, and sometimes miss a couple of balls, but most of the time they don't. So for me, being in investment world give me the privilege to watch other people in action and continue to grow.
Christy, I agree with that so much. And I really, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be sharing this panel with both of you, such incredible, inspiring women. So thank you for inspiring me so much. You know, I didn't really know that much about investing, honestly, until I got out to Silicon Valley. And I was very lucky that I had some other women and mentors in my life who sat me down and said, you know, Randy, you will never create generational wealth in your life just from having a salary. You need to own equity in things. You need to invest. You need to own pieces of companies. The other thing that I quickly learned is that we can speak very loudly with our dollars. If the world does not look the way you want it to look right now, you can change, you can invest in the world that you want to see. That's why I've loved being part of the team at Republic as an advisor, because suddenly I can open up my wallet and I can fund female entrepreneurs, diverse entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs that are doing eco-sustainable things. And I can think, you know what, maybe the world isn't perfect right now, but I can be a part of getting it to a place that it is. I also really hope that more women will start investing, because I have found that when you put an investment into a company, you have a voice at the table. And even if it's a male entrepreneur and an all male team, suddenly they have to listen to you as an investor and they have to take your input, and you can really, even very small amounts of money can have huge change and impact in the world. So I've grown very passionate, and investing is one of my favorite things that I do.
So it can be said that investing is important to both men and women, but for women in particular, right? So share with us a little bit, why are you both passionate about investing into startups and startups founded and run by female founders? Maybe starting with you, Randy.
Sure. Well, gosh, I just love feeling that I can be a small part of bringing something new into the world that didn't exist until I played a tiny part of it. It's almost like being a patron of the arts, how people used to, and many people still do, support the ballet or the opera, and you help commission a piece that then gets brought into the world because you helped finance it. I think, to me, I feel the same way with a startup. I feel like here's a new idea and an opportunity that got brought into the world because I was able to help give an entrepreneur a chance. And that's something that's so powerful. For me, I love the idea that I can scale beyond just me working at one company. If you are working at one company, then that's one company that you're putting all of your time into. But if you are investing across 20 or 30 different companies, you have found a way to really scale your value and your expertise, and you have many more chances for success. So those are a few of the things that I think about and why I love it so much.
Yes. What about you, Christy?
Well, we invest in startups, first of all, because we ran startups before and we still are running startups right now. We relate to people who follow those dreams. But specifically about women, what I found out is that it is natural for women to be a multitasker. If you just watch a day for a woman in the morning, getting up in the morning, she's a mother, getting her kids out of bed, send them to school, then she goes to work, she becomes somebody at work, and then go home, she is a mother, a wife, a daughter, taking care of parents as well, and a friend who share stories and who are there for her friends. So it is pretty natural for women to do multiple things and do it very well. And that is pretty much what an entrepreneur is. They wear multiple hats during their day as an entrepreneur. So I believe that women are cut out to be entrepreneurs. On the other end is that it is true, it is not that common to have many women in a startup companies, especially with tech companies. But I think it's mainly because people are not open to the ideas, rather than there is anything different about women that they can't be there. Let me give you a very, very funny example. So I got to know somebody from a tech company saying that women are not into tech companies mainly because there are not that many women engineers or women in tech. And it is not natural for them to stay in the factory for the night shifts, for example. And I said, that's the most ridiculous idea that I've ever heard, because I saw all women doctors at night shifts in hospitals all the time. And of course they are scientists, and of course they work for night shifts as well. It is just a prejudice against women, and the tech sector hasn't had enough women.
I agree. Christy, I have a funny story on that also. So in the United States, Randy is usually a name for boys. There's not that many women that have that name. And so I had a real competitive advantage when I first got to Silicon Valley, because I would email with people and they thought they were emailing with a guy. And so they would agree to have a meeting with me. And then I'd show up and they'd say, "Where's your boss, Randy?" And I was like, "Gotcha, like, I'm here now, you have to take a meeting with me." And it's funny, but also very sad that I had to kind of use pretending to be a guy to get ahead in Silicon Valley for quite a while. So it's the same thing, just on a different continent.
Yeah, so but we are very determined to change this, right? So when it comes to investing into startups, what are the three biggest criterias for each of you in order to choose or to say yes to a startup? Maybe starting with Christy. What do you think? Three criterias to say yes.
Wow, three could be a lot. So first of all, I focus on the people. When I make investment, the person that I invest in is the most important thing. He can change his mind. The products can change. His passion about certain technology can move on to an adjacent technology. It is okay too. Or he find another CTOs who are expert in other fields. It is okay too. But in the end of the day, the person that we invest in means a lot, because the vision of that person, the dedication of that person to his or her dream is a very important part for the success of the company, or even if it is not the company, it's the project or something that is going to change the world. The people is what I invest in.
Okay, so doesn't need to be three, just one most important thing. It's the team, the founders, right? I think that you would agree on some level with this, because I think that I've watched an interview with yours and you mentioned the founders as one of the criteria for you to choose a startup to invest in, right, Wendy?
Yes, I have to say I agree completely with that, because at the end of the day, the people are really all that matter. And it's very funny. I get pitched a lot with entrepreneurs who think that I'm going to be wowed by their snazzy PowerPoint and pitch deck. And really all I'm paying attention to is the person, because we're going to be in business together for a long time if I invest. And I want to know that this is the person, when a pandemic hits and surprises all of us, are they going to give up, or are they going to roll up their sleeves and do what it takes to pivot and move their business through it? Like Christy said, all ideas change. In fact, I don't think I've ever invested in a company that still looked the same 5 years later. And it would be crazy if it did, because the world changes. So I think the people, for anyone out here who's listening, who's ever pitching someone on investing, it's really you. You're selling them on you. I will say, though, that I do a lot of investing, I do a lot of technology and startup investing, but another real passion area of mine is the arts and theater. I do a lot of investing in Broadway shows and theatrical shows around the world. And so for me, I'm also really looking at how an audience responds to a piece. I guess you could call that product market fit. In technology, you're looking for, is there a customer base that will pay for something and use it? In theater, even if I'm watching a showcase where there's only 6 of us sitting in the room, I'm paying just as much attention to how the audience and the customers are interacting with the theatrical show. And that's really what I make a lot of my decisions based on. And I feel very fortunate to be involved with many award-winning shows around the world through that. So I think definitely the people, and definitely you want to look for that product market fit no matter what industry you're in.
Right. So apart from art for Randy, right? So for the two of you, what kind of industry or the kind of company or technology, in your opinion, are going to be a witness the booming development and worth our attention and our investment from this moment on? Maybe starting with Christy, what do you think? Which field or which industry should we, women and investors around the world, invest in?
It is hard to say, because the world will move forward in many different disciplines. So it's hard to say that which one will be the booming sectors and whatnot. For us, in the way we invest, we focus on the areas that we are passionate about. And it doesn't necessarily mean that these are the only booming sectors or even the most booming sectors in the world. We just follow certain areas because we love those areas, we understand those areas, and we want to grow more in understanding it. And of course, in any areas that we invest in, we believe in the impacts of that areas to the world. So specifically, we invest in material science companies. We invest in energy companies. New energy companies. And those are like the narrow areas that we focus our attention to and put a lot of time in learning in those areas.
People also talk a lot about, for example, cryptocurrency or blockchain technology, or you mentioned the material kind of industry as well. So is that something that you are interested in, Rennie?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, if I had only stuck to industries that I knew about, I never would have gotten into crypto and blockchain. And so for everyone who's out there, first of all, I think women should be investing in everything. And I actually think that putting your money into something is the best way to make sure that you learn about it. Because all around me, people are always asking me, Randy, what are podcasts that I should listen to learn about crypto? What are books that I should read? And I always say, no books, no podcast, put your money into it. And then I guarantee that that is going to keep you interested in the industry, because you're going to follow what's happening with your money and you're going to learn about crypto if you put your money where your mouth is instead of just reading books about it. So I'm a big fan of, I think women should jump into these new emerging industries. You know, it'll take us a long time, ladies, to catch up in male-dominated industries, but there are industries right now like crypto, blockchain, AI, that we can get in on the ground floor, that we can know as much as the men and be there just as early as the men. And I don't want us to miss out on those opportunities because we're so busy looking over here. How do we catch up?
Right. So investing is actually can be seen as a way for us women to learn about new things as well, right? One more question is about the challenges that women faces when it comes to investing. Apart from all the prejudice that we have, the current or history of women in investing world and that kind of thing, what are the challenges that women face when it comes to investing? And in such a new and uncertain world like this, what are the new challenges as well? Maybe starting with Christy.
So for me, in the investing world, networking is something that are very challenging to women. Why? First of all, we need to raise the fund, and to get the money from the funds around the world, which happen to be the men's world, is usually way harder for a women investor than a male investor. Second of all, going out there and finding the great companies, the great startups that you would like to bet on their future is also very challenging for women, because unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, majority of them are run by males. Those who decide what money to take from investors are usually a man's. So I think just like many other areas in the world right now, when those are the male-dominated sectors, women have to be tougher, to push in, and not being afraid because we are women or we are different, but just fight fairly with men to get attention, to get the dollars, and to get the privilege to invest in those companies.
Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead, Randy.
Oh, no, I was going to say I completely agree in the network, because one of the things that I saw going on around me is that all the men would call one another up and say, I have a great deal. Do you want to invest in me? Or they were like on the golf course talking about things. And women, we just have to try a little harder to have that network. I actually taught myself how to play golf this year so that I could be getting deals on the golf course. I'm not very good at all, but now at least, I can go out with the guys and hear about the deals they're doing. But I'll also say that the two most successful angel investments that I ever made, these are both companies that had a 200x return on my investment, were companies that no male investors would even look at. One of them was a smart breast pump for new nursing mothers. And they couldn't even get a male VC to take a meeting with them because they didn't want to talk about that. Or they would say things like, that's too niche and small a market. And they would say, no, it's not very niche. Like, most women will have a baby at some point and have to nurse this baby. And that company was, I think, one of my all-time most successful investments that I ever made. They got purchased by a huge global company a few years later. I also invested in a company that had a patent for rugs where you could take the top layer off a rug, wash it in your washing machine, and put it back down. And again, the men were laughing, you know, that's not AI, that's not blockchain. And I was like, no, but I have babies, I have a puppy, that's very smart. And so I think, you know, especially for women, we have really good intuition. If you're facing a problem in your own life, probably millions of other women around the world are facing that problem too. And so if you find an entrepreneur that's solving that problem for you, that's probably a really good bet.
Right. So what is considered our disadvantage can become advantage for us when it comes to investing, right? Yeah. For the both of you, do you think that in the short term, there will be big changes for female investors in this very industry? What do you think?
Absolutely. We have seen more and more investors who are females, and their performance is huge, amazing. And in the world of startups, the same way, there are more and more women who would go out there and started companies and founded companies. And over time, even when the founder of the companies is men, the executive team has women on there, and the decision are now shared between men and women. So I believe that the world is getting more and more balanced in terms of men and women in terms of decision making. And why? Because in the end of the day, the products are sold to men and women equally. So the whole decision making process needs to be more balanced in the interest of the companies and the products itself.
Mm-hmm. What about your idea?
For sure. Well, first of all, when I first went out to Silicon Valley, you know, almost 20 years now, there were very few women at the top investing firms. Now today, it's looked on very strange if you're an investing firm and you don't have women at the table as partners. And so, you know, even though there's a long way to go for women in investing around the world, you know, that is a very noticeable change from when I started in Silicon Valley to now. I also think for me, it's really important, you know, I really try to have a strong mission statement for myself whenever I'm investing. And for me, I only make investments where there is at least, you know, a woman or diversity on the executive team of a company. And so sometimes that means that I'll miss out on a good investment that is only, you know, 6 white men. But that's okay. I'm okay to miss a good opportunity because I feel so strong about my mission statement that, you know, I know that there's a lot of people that will write checks to company like that. They don't need my money. My money is going to go towards the future and changing the world in the direction that I want to see. And so people know now that if they are going to come to me to pitch, that they better have a diverse team that they're pitching. Otherwise, it's just going to be an immediate no. So I think, you know, it's really important when you're investing to know what you stand for and stand strongly behind that.
Right. So there will be changes. Right? But for the context of Vietnam, I would like to have a questions for Christy. That we are going to witness a lot of changes when it comes to the role of women in the future of investing in Vietnam.
Absolutely. And what crazy about Vietnam is, and I'm sure everybody agrees with me, we already had very strong leaders who are women, and especially in the business sector. You can name quite a few out of just close your eyes and you can name a few already very strong women business leaders, and it's gonna continue to be the case. The society in Vietnam somehow has opened up a lot of doors to women and girls in terms of gaining education and supporting them in terms of being independent and being an entrepreneur. You will see a ton of women who already have her own little businesses to the side that she will sell products online. And that is majority of the social commerce businesses that we have seen in this country. And by the way, that sector in Vietnam is amazingly phenomenally growing, more than any other countries that you could think of. So with all of that, I believe the material is right there. We just need to do something right for the women entrepreneurs to step up and to support them for bigger businesses in the future.
Right. So we've talked about the situation in both countries and around the world. Now, should we talk about some of the solutions that each of us and both of you as advisors can do in order to raise and inspire more women in Vietnam and around the world to jump into these opportunities of investing? So what can we do in order to make better balance between the investing rates between women and men? Maybe starting with Randy, what should we do?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think for any female founders that are out there, to have a really strong network around you is very important. I have found that, when you're going into a pitch meeting, maybe investors are more critical because they're biased against you. And so make sure that you have advisors that are attached to your startup that are filling in any gaps that you might have in your own resume or your own skill set, so that no one can say, well, you're missing a technical person or you're missing this. Make sure you walk into the room with your network and your advisors that are already attached to your company. Don't give them any room. I also think, there's a lot of very creative ways to raise money these days. It used to be very traditional. You went to a bank or you went to a traditional investor. Right now, a lot of companies are being very successful raising smaller friends and family seed rounds. They're doing it through equity crowdfunding like Republic that women are very strong in. When you tell a story over video to raise money, women are actually much stronger than men at doing that. And so, think a little bit outside the box. Crypto is, really interesting, exciting new things. And so you don't have to raise money or do things the way it's always been done. You can get creative. And I think those are some of the areas that I'm seeing a lot of female founders excelling.
Yeah. What about you? What should we do in order to balance the investment rates between women and men?
I will share the story from the perspective of Vietnam. I think one of the biggest challenges for Vietnamese women, it comes from her family. So for the women to feel that they can step outside of the family and follow her own dream, we need a lot of support from the family, from men and women in the family. Moms always feel guilty getting out of the house especially when the kids are young, and following her own dream. And to be an entrepreneur is such a demanding job, and it is round the clock job. And the pressure on the women is tremendous, it's huge. So I would say to support a woman to follow her own dream and can deploy all the talent that she can get and take advantage of all the opportunities that she has to grow as a person. We need not only the man, the husband, the father, the brother, but also other people like the mother to support her with taking care of the kids or something. So I believe that when we have a support system from family, from schools, which are healthy and sturdy, stable for the women, I think we will see a lot more women entrepreneurs, especially in Vietnam.
Right. And in a talk show, I think that you mentioned that your husband is actually very supporting of you when it comes to, taking care of kids at night so that you can sleep a little bit more and you can be, fresh as the day to start with rocking the world during the daytime. I'm sure that the same thing happened to you, right, Randy?
Yes. In fact, wow, I've been very lucky because my husband graduated at the top of our class at Harvard. If you looked on paper and you didn't look at our names and you said, which one of these people is going to be like so successful, I think everyone would pick him based on his resume. He has now almost 3 times taken a step back to be a stay-at-home dad so that I could pursue my career and dive into my career. And so I feel very lucky to have a husband that's so supportive. I will say this year in general, not just in our family and so many families around the world, this was a really tough year where women took a lot of steps back because so many schools shut down with the pandemic around the world. And I think, in the United States alone, it was something like 3 million women stepped out of the workforce. And I'm sure that you can see similar numbers all over the world like that, because all of a sudden it doesn't matter, how supportive everyone around you is. If school doesn't exist, then most women, have to take on an extra job at home to do that. And I know even in my own life, I even had to take, a bit of a step back from my career this year to help homeschool 3 children during this pandemic. So I really hope that coming out of this in the world, that we can really support women more so that we don't constantly have to be making that trade-off.
Right. So, yeah, there are difficulties and challenges for men and women, particularly women, when it comes to investing. But I'm sure that you would have top tips in order to share with people who attend the event today and people who are going to watch this event live later in the day on YouTube and Facebook and things like that. So share with us some of your top tips. In one of the interview, Randy, you mentioned that you need to learn to receive an answer no, for example. That is one of the challenge or the kind of thing that you need to learn in order to be confident in investing. And not all the investment that you're going to make, it's got to make you profit. So what kind of advice would you share with people?
Gosh, well, first of all, there's a lot of myths out there about investing. I think the first myth is that you have to be very rich to start investing. That's not true. You can start with any amount of money. And, especially in the year we just had, even though it was a difficult year to live through, the markets actually did quite well. So if you had invested, even if you had a difficult year, your money would be working very, very hard for you during that time. And so I would say, just get started, even if you are thinking, oh, that's not for me. I don't have that kind of money. You can get started early. I think the next thing is that you have to diversify your portfolio. You would never invest in just one stock or one company. You can't do that also when you're angel investing or when you're picking private companies. So for me, I always like to make sure that I'm invested in at least 20 or 30 things at one time across a whole range of industries, some tech, some arts, some real estate, things like that. So you can make sure that even if disaster strikes in one industry, that you're covered in your portfolio, because that's the way investing works. Not everything will pay off and will get you a profit, but if you have a balanced enough portfolio, the whole thing should rise over time. So, and then finally, I think just the best way to learn is by diving in. I think women, especially, we wait for things to be perfect before we do them. There's never a perfect time to start investing or put money into something. So, just get started as quickly as you can and learn by doing.
Right. And this moment is the best moment, as you said, right?
That's right. The best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Okay. So what about you, Christy? What kind of, tips you would like to share with female investors around the world and especially in Vietnam?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm a good investor in the first place, but from my experience, a couple of things that I learned is that, first of all, I think we need to understand what we invest in. Rather than like hearing somebody say, oh, that's good, and then we follow. That is the worst investment that somebody could ever make. And number two is that I trust women's intuition when it comes to investment. So while we need very fact-based reasons of why we invest into a companies, investing sometimes is an art and not so much of a science. So trust your intuition. And finally, I would say don't be greedy. When it comes to financial investment, what we go after is the financial return. But if that is the only thing that we go after, usually, I don't think it would do all that well. But if we believe deeply in the company, in the person, and in why that company or that project should flourish in this world, go after those things gives me better returns. So yeah, I don't know why, but that's just my experience.
Right. So invest in the future that you believe in, right? Right.
Yes.
So during this conversation, we receive a lot of questions, as you can see in the Q&A box down here. And apart from that, our journalists from Vietnam and in the region also have questions that they want to raise to this amazing panelists. So I think that it's time for us to share the stage with them and listen to the questions and answer those questions as well. So who is going to start? Oh, this is an interesting question. Can both of you tell me some experiences of failure in investing? I think this is important. People talk about successes, but what about, the time that you failed or the time that your investment, your belief didn't work out the way you wanted? Maybe,
Okay.
Randy, do you have, or Christy? Yes.
Okay, I'll go
ahead.
first. We fail in a number of investments, and one typical failure that we had was we invest in a really smart guy with amazing technology, and we just are so sure that that kind of technology will make impacts to the world. And the company indeed generates products that are very, very strong, but it still fails mainly because the founder cannot manage multiple tasks, including fundraising, managing, building the team, doing sales and marketing for the product. So no matter how good the product is, it still fails. So this is a pretty common story that we had along our investing journey, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, this year, gosh, it was such a difficult year. I had several investments that I had made that were doing so well, a year ago. And then when the pandemic hit, they couldn't survive it, or, they hadn't raised enough capital going into it, or they didn't have the team to stick with it. I had invested in a very promising company around ticketing for live events using blockchain technology. And it was such a good idea. They were growing 100% month after month. And then the pandemic hit, there were no live events in the United States for over a year. And so the company couldn't survive. And I think that's why it's so important to have diversification in your portfolio of investments, because you never know what might happen in the world that changes the landscape.
Right. So don't put your eggs in just one basket, right? That's what we learn. And now we have the connection with Ms. Mary representing Amchan here in Vietnam. As far as I know, she used to be she was the former Consul General of the United States of America in Vietnam. Thank you so much for joining us, and please share with us your question.
Sure. Thank you. So I wanted to ask the question, Randy had noted that one of the real keys to success is expanding your personal network. And I know Randy noted you learned how to play golf as one of those ways to be there where the deals are discussed and made. And I wanted to ask Christy, for you, what steps have you taken to expand your personal network, and what advice would you have to women here in Vietnam to do likewise?
Thank you. Interesting questions.
Randy, you want to go first, or?
Oh, I think it was directed at you. I don't think you can get out of this.
I have not been very intentional in expanding my network. Indeed, somehow the network grows very naturally in the way that somebody reached out to me, and I want to be helpful, and then I find them really interesting, and then I want to know more about them, and then I spend more time with them, and they pull me into their network. That's how I get to know more and more of them. The beauty of it is that I can diversify the network. One of these days, I got to know a network of great chefs in Vietnam, they cook really well, and I get the privilege to understand how to grow as a chef. The next day, I'll learn about artists and painters, and the following days, I learn about some pianists. But I have not been intentional in getting to know the VCs out there, the journalists out there, or somebody in the areas that I would like to network into. So I would say I learned from Randy that expanding network needs to be intentional, but also I embrace the time that I have with people that I just bumped into in my life. It makes my life so much more interesting, and it gives me the privilege to learn about the areas that I never had a chance to know about.
Right. In my opinion, organization like AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, is a good way to expand your network, right? And Miss Mary and her team at AmCham, I'm sure that more than happy to support and match people with each other, so their business idea is gonna be flourish in the future, right? Thank you for the questions. And now we have a connection with Ms. Bing, representing VN Express, the media's partner for this very webinar.
Yeah. Good morning. I have a question for both Christy and Randy. We Vietnamese, we have a saying that in danger lies opportunity. So with such impacts of COVID-19, what are the opportunities for small companies and startups? And the second question, we have a site for startups, startups.vnexpress.net. So I have a question for them that as an investor, Christy and Randy, can you have any advice for Vietnamese startups to find the right investor for them? Thank you.
Right, so help us here.
Sure. Well, first of all, I completely agree with you that I think sometimes a moment of crisis actually brings the most innovation and entrepreneurial thinking. And I'm reminded of being in Silicon Valley when the iPhone first came out. That completely just changed the way customers use the internet overnight. We were, at Facebook before the iPhone came out, most of our customers were using it on a laptop or a desktop computer, and then suddenly overnight, customer behavior changed. We're seeing something like that again with the pandemic. Overnight, people's behavior has changed around health and safety and what they feel comfortable doing. And you could be in two schools of thought. You could say, oh, I'm going to wait till it goes back to normal. Or you could say, I don't think we're going back to normal. I think there's a new normal and I have to innovate and be part of it. And I saw that happen with smartphones. I saw that the companies that said, nope, we're not going back to normal, there's a new normal, were the companies that were very, very successful and well positioned for the future. So I would very much encourage every company, if you're struggling right now or thinking about innovating right now, don't think about waiting to go back to normal. Think about creating what the new hybrid world looks like on the other side of this.
Right. I totally agree with Randy. So for me, I thought of the leap forward in the middle of this whole pandemic is digitalization. So in Vietnam, just so you know, Randy, 2019 was the year of digitalization as promoted by the government. Before we knew it, 2020 was a much bigger year for digitalization with no intention from anybody. And we've seen a huge wave of companies and businesses moving from offline to online. And I believe that trend continues to hold and grow even after the pandemic is over. So the positive thing of it is that it pushed people, whether they are tech savvy or not, to adopt and embrace tech. And that is going to make the efficiency of the world much better in the future. The not so positive side of it is that it may make people forget that they can actually connect with each other offline as well. And the quality of the relationship means a lot more than just online interaction. So I believe that if somebody cares about how a product will move forward in the future, I believe, of course, the channel that it will have to be at is online. But whatever product that enables people to deepen their relationship with other people and deepens their knowledge journey, I think it's something that the startups, especially startups in Vietnam, should go after.
Right. So within a short amount of time, we hope that those answers was satisfying to you, Ms. Bing from VN Express. And now we'd like to take the questions from Ms. Lin representing Nikkei.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. I have a question for Randy. If you could comment on the potential in Vietnam or your interest here. So that could be in terms of how you see Vietnam's potential, especially compared to the region, when we're talking about women investors, or it could be in relation to Republic, one of the companies you back, or just in terms of the U.S.-Vietnam relationship, which, you know, it looks like you know quite a few Vietnamese American entrepreneurs back there in California. So I expect that's part of the reason that that you're participating in this webinar today.
Yes, well, gosh, first of all, I think, you know, every company needs to think of themselves as a global company these days. You know, now that we're all so connected, it's gone are the days that your company can be just for one country or just for one region. And I know for me, that's an area that I've really been expanding in my own investment thesis is how do I connect with entrepreneurs and companies around the world? Or how do I take amazing things that I'm seeing around the world and help those companies and those trends catch on in markets that I'm familiar with? And I know through Republic, for example, recently I have invested in a group of entrepreneurs from Australia that are trying to bring an Australian coffee concept around the world. I've invested in an entrepreneur from South Africa who's taking a process of meat and meat curing and bringing that to other countries. And so for me, I'm always on the lookout for exciting entrepreneurs and visionaries all over the world. And it's, you know, I think it makes my life and my portfolio richer and better to diversify around the world that way. So it would be a wonderful opportunity to have the chance to invest and connect with entrepreneurs in Vietnam.
So I hope that is the question. The answer is satisfying to you, Ms. Lin, and thank you for joining us. I think that with the answer from Randy, we'd like to wrap up today's webinar. Once again, thank you all so much. Christy and Randy for joining and sharing with us today. Thank you all the attendees for your interest, your questions, and we all hope that with the sharing today, we have somehow done our part, a little bit of something to encourage women in Vietnam and around the world to be more brave when it comes to investing, right? Yeah, thank you so much once again. And thank you, Randy. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.